The film entitled Geostorm, released in 2017, starring our favorite actor, Gerard Butler, tells the story of a super major disaster caused by a malfunction of a weather control satellite and suspicions of sabotage. Behind the disaster that occurred, there were two brothers who struggled to uncover the truth. Disasters continue to occur throughout the world. When a heat wave hit Madrid, the number of victims reached 2 million people in just one day. After witnessing this terrible tragedy, the countries of the world united, led by the United States and China. 17 leading scientists succeeded in creating a weather satellite network called Dutch Boy, which was designed to stop extreme weather and prevent disasters. And this is the creator of the Dutch Boy program, Jake Lawson, who is currently going through a meeting of council members. Jake's younger brother, Max Lawson, is already in the building. The meeting discusses handing over U.S. control of Dutch Boy to the International Oversight Committee, but Jake disagrees with this and ends up saying something that makes the judge uncomfortable. Max tries to warn Jake, but to no avail. The judge then reads out all of Jake's violations, including using Dutch Boy without permission, and decides that Jake and his team will be replaced. After the meeting, Jake meets with Max, who tells him that he is now in charge of Dutch Boy. This news is not to Jake's liking, and he is fired by his own brother, which puts a strain on their relationship. 3 years later, international troops arrived in the Afghan desert. They find everything frozen, including the local residents, despite the desert's normally hot temperatures. Max is now at the White House for a meeting with the president. There is also Sarah, Max's fiancée, who works as a secret presidential security agent. This meeting discussed the freezing that occurred in Afghanistan, which was allegedly caused by damage to a weather control satellite, and this matter must be kept secret. Max also spoke up, saying that if there was damage to the satellite, someone had to find out the cause. The president agrees with Max's idea, and after the meeting is over, Deckham asks Max to send Jake. Repairs and installation of new satellites in Afghanistan will be carried out. Max Maud, a satellite technician, secretly copies the satellite data and stores it in a locker. However, when Max Maud walked out, suddenly the front and back doors closed, and the window glass shattered, sending him flying out. Max visits Jake's house and is warmly welcomed by Jake's daughter, Hannah Lawson. However, Jake himself wasn't too happy to see him. After a long conversation, Jake finally agreed to join back. A scientist named Ching Long in Hong Kong discovered an oddity on the Afghan satellite. He tried to contact Max immediately, but the call didn't go through. The temperature in Hong Kong is now so hot that eggs that fall on the streets immediately cook. Soon, the roads began to crack, and buried gas pipes began to surface due to the heat, eventually triggering massive explosions that destroyed tall buildings. After moving away from the city center, Cheng Long saw the temperature drop drastically, so it could be concluded that the temperature increase only occurred in certain areas. After saying goodbye to Hannah, Jake immediately went to the space station on a NASA rocket to repair the damaged Dutch Boy satellite. When he arrived there, Jake was greeted by the head researcher named Ute Fassbinder and then introduced to several people who would become his new team. Jake began to explain things that would be the main focus in the examination, such as freezing in the Afghan desert, the tragedy in Hong Kong, and the incident that happened to Max Maud. Max received a call from Cheng. Cheng thinks that the tragedy in Hong Kong occurred because of damage to the Dutch Boy satellite, and he can't check it because access has been blocked. When Max tries to access through his hollow frame, access is denied as well. Cheng began to suspect that someone was hiding all this on purpose. He also explained that if this damage continues, it could cause a major disaster called a geostorm. Cheng's suspicions grew even greater when a group of people entered his office and took his laptop. Jake begins to investigate the damage to the Dutch Boy satellite in Afghanistan, but unfortunately, the data required for the research has been deleted due to the damage. Max then asked Dana for help to check the hollow frame because he couldn't access all of Dutch Boy's servers. After checking, Dana found there was interference with the access point and server. She believes someone deliberately blocked Max's access. Before leaving, Max asked Dana to keep this a secret. Deckham contacted Jake and asked him to immediately report the progress of his research to Max. As they talk, Max says that he can't access Dutch Boy's satellite anymore, but Jake responds in a way that forces Max to bring up his past kindnesses. The Dutch Boy satellite in Hong Kong was successfully retrieved, but it turned out that the control center was damaged, and the satellite was moving without control. Fortunately, after hitting the wall, the satellite stopped moving, even though its condition was no longer perfect. After that, Jake's teammates showed a video of the incident that happened to Max Maud. In the video, it can be seen that a panel is stuck, possibly still holding important data. Cheng is now in Washington. He invited Max to meet to explain the tragedy in Hong Kong directly. Jake and Ute plan to take the panel, even though this poses a huge risk to their safety. After the panel was brought in, suddenly there was a leak in Jake's suit, which made it move uncontrollably, and unfortunately, the panel slipped from Jake's grasp. After that, Jake secretly showed Ute the hardware that stored the data. He kept this a secret because he believed there were crew members who wanted to harm him. The investigation is now entering stage 2, namely the incident that happened to Max Maud. Ute found no signs of interference from other crew members and considered this to be a pure accident. But Jake was still suspicious, so he tried checking the special storage on Dutch Boy, and it turned out that access had been blocked. Meanwhile, Cheng and Max are preparing to meet. But when Cheng wanted to cross, suddenly a man pushed him, making Cheng unable to hold on. Zeus was the last word Cheng said. Jake contacted Max, but this time he only told him about their childhood. Max immediately realized that everything Jake said was code for important information he wanted to convey. Once again, Max asked Dana for help in interpreting Jake's words. Turns out, Dana was able to decipher the code, which read, "Evidence of sabotage is at the highest levels of government, don't trust anyone." After that, they tried to find out about the Zeus project called Cheng, but couldn't find any further details because the data was stored on the White House network. Dana agrees to help Max infiltrate the White House system. Max then asks Sarah for help to get into the White House. At first, Sarah didn't agree because of her oath as a secret agent, but after Max explained at length, she finally agreed to help. Meanwhile, Jake and Ute check the footage of Maxmoud repairing the Afghanistan satellite and see Maxmoud taking data from the satellite. They immediately went to check the lockers, and suddenly Dusset appeared. Jake believed that Dusset was not the culprit, so Dusset helped Jake find the locker where Maxmoud kept his items. After checking, it turned out that the data contained a virus that caused the Dutch boy satellite to experience system damage so that it could not function optimally. On the other hand, Max, Sarah, and Dana are looking for information about the Zeus project, which turns out to be a simulation of a giant storm that will occur around the world, known as geostorm. Max concluded that someone was deliberately using Dutch boy as a weapon. Without wasting any time, Max immediately told Jake about the incidents in Afghanistan and Hong Kong. Jake suggests that all of Dutch boy's satellites be reset to safe mode, and the only person who can do that is the president. So, if the president is the mastermind behind all this, Max must get the access code from the president to be able to reset Dutch boy. Shortly after that, Jake received a warning that connections to all satellites were starting to drop. Suddenly, there was hail in Tokyo that destroyed tall buildings. At the same time, in Brazil, a strange phenomenon occurred where seawater suddenly froze and continued to spread inland. Jake immediately took action. He ordered the team to track the critical satellite and launch a new satellite to destroy it. After succeeding, suddenly there was a warning that the geostorm disaster would occur in 1.5 hours. While waiting for the president, Max saw news about hurricanes that hit various places in the world. How shocked he was when he found out that the next area to be hit by the storm was Orlando, where he is now. Not long after, Deckham called him. Max told him about the storm that would soon hit the area. Deckham said that the access code uses the president's fingerprint and retinal scanner. He will also try to convince the president. Jake suddenly gets a warning that the space station is about to be destroyed. When trying to access it, it turns out it is locked, and only Duncan can open it. So, now it's clear that Duncan is behind all this. Because time was running out, Jake ordered all the crew to immediately head to the shuttle and evacuate. Jake meets Duncan and immediately gives him a lesson. But it turns out Duncan was ready and cornered Jake. Luckily, Jake manages to turn the tables, and Duncan is sucked out after the window breaks. Deckham suddenly attacks Max, and it turns out that the mastermind behind all this is not the president but Deckham. He deliberately placed the president in Orlando to be exposed to disaster, in the hope that he could become the next president. Max went straight to Sarah to tell her the truth. He plans to take the president away from Orlando to save him. Sarah told Max to find a car to escape while she would secure the president. Sarah managed to divert attention and immediately secured the president so he could escape with Max. But Deckham didn't stay silent. He ordered his men to chase Max so they couldn't get out of Orlando. Meanwhile, Max explains to the president about the chaos that is happening. In India, tornadoes began to rage, while in Russia, temperatures rose to extreme levels that melted snow and burned buildings. In the midst of a thunderstorm, Max continues to be chased by Deckham's troops. Thanks to Sarah's great driving skills, they were finally able to defeat Deckham's men and survive. The last evacuation craft is ready to leave, but Jake decides to stay at the space station and will stop everything manually. After his men lost, Deckham tried his final plan by blowing up the car Sarah was driving. But apparently, the car was empty, just a decoy. Sarah had tracked Deckham's position before, and now Deckham couldn't escape anymore. He would soon be arrested. Geostorm will occur in 9 minutes. Max and the president hurriedly contacted Jake, who was still on the space station. The president sent the code, but it took about 1 minute for it to arrive. Here, the sad moment begins to be felt. Jake says that the code can only stop the geostorm, but the space station he's on will still be destroyed. Jake asks Max to look after his daughter and apologizes because all this time, he was just a bother. The code has been sent, and Jake must immediately go to the control center to enter the code. When he had difficulty opening the door, Ute suddenly appeared from behind and immediately helped him. There is only 1 minute left before the geostorm occurs. After Jake enters the code, Dutch boys' satellites around the world begin to deactivate one by one. Jake still has to restart the system manually so that the virus disappears. With only seconds left before the geostorm occurs, Jake manages to stop it. The space station is still in a state of destruction, and they have to quickly find a way to get out. Explosions occur everywhere, and Jake sees that the Dutch boy satellite is still intact. They immediately enter it. This was their last hope. And yes, the space station explodes, and all connections with Earth are lost. Moments later, there is a glowing object heading towards Earth. It's Dutch boy carrying Jake and Ute. Hernandez helped navigate so they could land safely. Finally, they were able to return to Earth safely. Max, Sarah, and the president welcomed Jake's arrival, and at the same time, the ongoing disasters began to stop. The end.